Welcome to the Lovefly podcast. This is Paul Tizard, fearofflying coach, and today's episode 100, I cannot believe it, is going to be a little bit more light-hearted. I am joined by a plethora of pilots, and whatever the collective name for pilots is, I don't know, but welcome. It's going to be fairly light-hearted today. Is that all right, folks?
Absolutely.
Yeah. For those who don't have a sense of humour, you're welcome to leave the call. We'll make a start. Thanks ever so much for joining. This is the 100th episode, which is upon us shortly, which means nearly 2 years of doing the podcast, which I can't believe. And that's just doing my basic maths. I wanted to get a plethora of pilots together to get you to... Pete Legge, one of the pilots, joined us today. He's in full combat gear. It's scaring the bejesus out of me. So
I will put my helmet on. So
oh, no way. We've got Ralph as well. So I know we'll do some intros in a sec. There may be a couple of others come, but we'll just sort of integrate as we go along. I can't believe that Ralph said he was able to do it, and here he is. Ralph Miles, welcome. Yeah, he lives in the middle of Somerset, which, for those who are familiar with it, is and he doesn't really have Wi-Fi at all.
That's a bit like up here, to be honest with you.
Yeah. So Ralph will probably pitch in at some point. But what I thought would be quite nice to do is just do a quick whiz round, do the mini bio, who everyone is. Obviously, I know you all, and then we'll get going. I've got a bunch of questions to ask you. And there you go. I've got a bunch of questions to ask you that are fairly light-hearted, but we can obviously go wherever you want to go. Right. So who'd like to go first? Let's go to Ron first, because Ron's at 1 a.m. for Ron, so we've got to keep him awake.
He's old. He may pass out before we get there. And I'm the only one with the accent, I guess. So just a quick bio.
Yeah, just a quick. Give us a sort of like the elevator pitch, if you like.
Okay, Ron Nielson. I was born at a very early age and grew up, wanted to be a pilot, and made that happen. I spent 10 years in the military, and then I left, never intending to be an airline pilot, but it was too good to pass up. So I got into the airline industry in 1978, worked for my first airline for 9 years. They went belly up, then went to the next one, was there for 15 years or so. And then we were the little mouse, but we swallowed a couple of big elephants. We ended up purchasing U.S. Airways and then American Airlines. So that was my airline career. About halfway through my airline career, we started crew resource management over here, a human factors program, kind of like the psychology. We used to joke, teaching pilots how to play nice with each other. And I got involved in that. And simultaneously, literally the same year, 1987, I was invited by a friend of mine who ran the employee assistance program at the airline that I was at the time. And he would refer clients, employees to psychologists in the area. And one of them voiced a request for a pilot to help him start a fearofflying program. So that was when I started 35 years ago. 35 years ago this month, actually.
Respect.
And yeah, right. And I knew nothing about it. Still know very little, but what I've learned mostly, I've learned from the people that I've worked with over the years. And I knew after the first night, I just did a 2-hour Q&A with some folks. I thought they'd be a little nervous, and I didn't realize the scope and the magnitude of their fear. And I was hooked. I loved it. And if you'd have told me I'd be doing that at 75 years old, 35 years ago, I'd have said, you're out of your mind. But it's the most fulfilling thing I've done, and here I am. So glad to meet all of you.
Thank you, Ron. That's great. You get to choose who goes next.
Is it Emma? I lost the names off of the thing. I think Emma, yeah.
Hi. Yeah, hello. I was also born at a very young age. I like that. Oh, I'm sorry about the barking.
That's all right. It's real.
We'll try to match it.
So I grew up always fascinated by things that flew, but I didn't really know. I didn't sort of spend all my childhood telling people I was going to be a pilot. I saw the space shuttle land at Stansted on the back of a 747 in 1983, and I was 10 years old, and I thought, I'm going to be an astronaut. That's great. I love it. And I didn't become an astronaut. I went on. I did a history degree with an intention of becoming a corporate lawyer. And while I was at university, I joined the University Air Squadron, which we have. Those of you who live here will probably know about it, but you may not if you live overseas. So the Royal Air Force has University Air Squadrons around the country that you can join and hello. And it's basically a way of getting people into the Air Force as pilots. And so I joined that for 2 years, joined in my second year. And the first day I was there, I met my husband, who was going through nav training. Obviously, he wasn't my husband at the time. He was going through nav training. And so although I had been flying for a couple of years, we then married straight after university. And I moved up here to the Moray First in north of Scotland and had children, built a house, which we still live in. And it wasn't until 2003 when we moved to New Zealand on a military posting and that I started flying again. And I came back as a fully qualified commercial pilot, instructed for 3 years. And then I always wanted to fly for EasyJet once I knew I was going to fly. And I just was in the right place at the right time to get a position with them in 2009. And that was the start of my airline career. And I throughout that career, I became a peer support mentor, and I also was a fear of flying presenter on stage with the EasyJet fear of flying program, which again I really loved as well, because you kind of, when people get off, we would do like a 2-hour presentation on stage, so I'd do 40 minutes of that, which was scripted, and I had to learn the full script, and it was really amazing because we'd do that, and then the guys that ran it, Lawrence Layton, some of you might know, he's a hypnotist originally, but he ran this course for EasyJet, and he'd do his bit, and then we'd take them flying, and they get off the flight, they get onto the flight, quaking with fear and in tears, and they'd leave the flight and go, oh my God, you've changed my life. And I'd be like, no, you have changed your life by doing this. So and it was so brilliant to see the change in people when they had every noise explained to them and every movement explained to them. So I also really loved it and would have happily carried on doing it, but COVID really is what took my career away from me, in a sense, because I live in the north of Scotland. I was working in Gatwick. There were no flights. I couldn't get to work anymore. Actually, even now, it would be really difficult to do that commute because flights get cancelled so frequently, or there aren't as many flights as there used to be, because obviously people have reduced their capacity. So I took voluntary redundancy in 2020, and in the meantime set up a charity, Project Wingman, which I still run, and that uses and has used over the last couple of years grounded air crew and now just air crew who aren't grounded anymore, to provide wellbeing support to frontline NHS staff across the country. So I still run that, and I sort of do lots of other bits and pieces, really, including supporting Paul with this, which I really love. So that's me.
Oh,
wow. Amazing. Emma, where are we going to next? Welcome, Ralph. I see we're doing the intros. You probably worked out what's going on. Emma, where are we going to next?
Let's go, Peter.
Aha. Okay, fair enough. As I said, Pete Legge. I joined the Air Force in 1971 as a technician apprentice. From that, got commissioned, and 28 years in the Air Force, flying Phantoms, Tomcats with the United States Navy, even before the film came out back in 1982. Then Gulf War I, kind of got tired of people shooting at me, didn't enjoy that. So I left the Air Force and joined Virgin Atlantic. 20 years with Virgin Atlantic, flying 747, 777 with BA, 787 Norwegian, just under training, and then back to Virgin for the rest of my career. 2020, hit the grand old age of 65, and they said, no, you can't fly commercial anymore, you're too old. And then back to my military career as the adjutant 606, finishing that at the end of August, and then I'm going to off to teach multi-crew cooperation and jet orientation for baby pilots coming through the system. Been doing human factors for about 20 years, and really, when Ron introduced himself, I thought, hold on, I know that face. And I used one of his videos on a human factors course that I teach, that I'm teaching this afternoon. So real small world. So thanks, Ron. It's the one where you talk about the Steve Martin sticker, how to get $1 million and pay no taxes.
What is it?
It's one of your videos, how to get $1 million and pay no taxes, is one of the jokes you're making there. So I use that. So I was thinking last night, right, what about this course? What about Lovefly? Why does it work? And
well, don't start all that now.
No,
we're on the intros. It's not your bloody show, Pete. Come on.
30 seconds.
Oh, go on then.
we give you the technical skills. Paul gives you the psychological skills, but it's the support all the people provide to each other. That's why it really works for my 3 words. I shut up.
Oh, that was a good one, yeah. Where are we going to next, Pete? You
Aaron.
get to choose. You've got the power.
Aaron, my fighter pilot buddy, sat there with his helmet behind him.
Okay. Alon. The name is Alon. Hello, I'm very happy to be here. Well, I start my story at the age of 9 when my mother took me to the optometrist who checked my sight and said, you are a little bit short-sighted. It will not affect your life. You are just not going to be a pilot. That's all. So that was the starting of my flying career. And I was very surprised to see that I was chosen to attend the Israeli Air Force Flying School, from which I graduated at 81 as a fighter pilot. I had a career of flying Skyhawks A4 and then F-16s. I flew an active service and then reserve until 2006. And I served in the Air Force until the end of 2000 as a career officer, and then I retired. In 2004, I did what I was sure that I was never going to do, which was joining El Al as an airline pilot. I thought it was a very dull or boring job, which was a very big surprise for me to find out that I really enjoyed it. And I flew 737s and then 747-400, and now I'm a captain of 787, flying mostly to the United States, a little bit to London and Paris and the East. And I'm going to retire in about a year and 2 months and 12 days, but who's counting? That's my flying career, and I didn't really understand that there was a problem with fear of flying. I didn't understand what was the issue, but people came to me, like probably most of you, it happened, and they asked questions. And approximately 10 or 11 years ago, I started to realize it was a problem, and I helped people, but it was only in 2017 when I started my own program here in Israel, classroom-based program of people. I had a couple of hundreds of people going through this course with 88% of success. I just asked them, rate your success, and 88% of them reported success. But I was really not happy with the order of magnitude of the influence that I could make. And in 2019, I started to invest some in money and time in creating a mobile application, when very comfortably the Corona time came and gave me actually 12 months at home without work, in which I created a company called Simplify, and we launched the application, which is called also Simplify. It's now in Hebrew and English, and we plan to add many languages to it. In short, the application gives information in video, in audio, and chat with the pilot, in which you guys, every one of you, are very invited to take part as pilots. I mean, so this is filling my world, and the way to help people is something that I was not really prepared to, how filling it is, how joyful it is, and how much satisfaction I can get out of it. So thank you.
You get to choose who goes next, and stop bloody recruiting pilots.
I have a quick Alon, were you flying from Tel Aviv to LA on July 25th by any chance? I was on your airplane if you were.
July 25th.
And he wanted an upgrade. Where were you?
Yeah.
In July, I was in LA. That's sure. That's for sure.
Right, that's enough of that, Alon. Come on, keep the intros. Who are we going to? We've got Adele or Ralph to choose. Adele, right.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I just want to start by saying a huge thank you to Emma. The charity you set up has changed so many people's lives, particularly a lot of my friends. I mention Project Wingman to me all the time and how much it helped them. So I just wanted to really point out
Good shout.
Thank you.
And thank you for that.
Hall of Fame you have put together here. Well done, you. So thanks, Paul, for doing this. I'm Adele. My background, I guess I am one of those people. I wanted to be a pilot from the age of 14. My brother did his PPL, and he's a little bit older than me, and he would take me flying across the North Yorkshire moors, which is where I'm originally from, and I think that's the glue that stuck aviation together for me. And then from there I went on, I did university, left university, went down to Australia, got my commercial license in Australia when I was 21, came back, converted that across to the UK license. And then I got a job with British Midland. I was there for about 6 years, flying pretty much everything they had, so Boeing's and Airbus, and a smaller aircraft called a Fokker as well. And then I joined, Ralph's laughing at me.
I'm doing my finger.
And then I joined Virgin, and we've got some of my ex-colleagues here on the call today. I was there for, I think it was around 16 years. A bit like Emma, the pandemic did, in fact, end my career there, and I was made redundant. But during my time there, I just highlight a few things, and I think, like some of us on the call today, I went into human factors quite early on in my career. It's really important to me that, you know, we get that right, the human in the system, and how we influence safety in aviation by looking at, you know, the systems approach and the human factors approach. And I guess through being involved with that, I then got involved with Paul, in a professional sense, of course. And, you know, we've talked about some of the things. We've talked about some of the things, you know, that we've done with fearofflying. And I think very much like Emma's described, you know, I can remember, you know, being in a conference suite with Paul, and, you know, 200 faces looking at you going, please help me. And ultimately, you know, that's very much what our aspiration was to do, and I think we were successful in a lot of cases. You know, and from that we've done the other end of the scale together, Paul. You know, we went out to Los Angeles as a group and did fearofflying courses out there. So I think what I'd like to point out really about the gathered personnel is the amount of, I guess, skill that we've got as a background in helping people with a fear of flying. And I'm just really happy to be here today. Thank you, Paul. And
Thank you.
Ralph, you're next.
Big finish, Ralph.
Okay,
I'm loving the vibe of this group. I don't want it to end. Go on.
Right. Okay. Hi, guys. I'm Ralph Miles. I joined the Royal Navy 1968, shortly before I was born. And I spent, I spent 8 years as a ship's cook, and then sort of got pushed towards aviation, which I couldn't spell at the time, but I thought, yeah, I'll have a go at that. So I joined Dartmouth, the Naval College, and trained to become a helicopter pilot. That was 1976, and then I did 16 years in the Royal Navy as a commando pilot. And I ended up flying the Jetstream, just a small twin turboprop, which gave me licenses that I needed, and then looked at commercial aviation in the early 90s. My first job was with a small company based on the Isle of Man, which was Manx Airlines, doing domestic flights. And from there, I made a few good contacts. One of them who happened to be the recruitment manager for Virgin Atlantic Airways. So, and they phoned me up one day and said, "Would you like to come to an interview?" So I had a quick think, and I was there. And so from '94, I was flying for Virgin on the Airbus, living down in Somerset, which was great in the sticks, commuting. But coincidentally, back in 1976, I joined with a great friend of mine, and we did all the courses together. His name was Norman Lees. And we flew commando together, we were instructors together, and we left the Navy at about the same time. We did the Falklands War together. We left the Navy about the same time. He joined Dan Air, and I went to Manx, and then Dan Air folded, and he was out of a job. And I said, "Norman, I've just got an interview with Virgin Atlantic. Why don't you phone him as well?" And he did, and he got a job on the Jumbo. I got a job on the Airbus, and we'd meet each other every now and then. I stay with him for SEPs and things like that. And then about 98 time, I suppose, he said, "I've met this guy called Paul Tizard, and we're starting up a course for all these people that don't like flying." And I said, "Norman, who are these people that don't like flying?" Because I sat there in the front of my airplane thinking all these people were really, really happy to go on holiday on an airplane. And he said, "No, most of them sit there with white knuckles." And that really did surprise me. And he said, "Would you like to help?" And I pulled the old excuse, "Oh, I live down in Somerset, Norman, I can't go and do this." And he was doing quite a few courses now. And then unfortunately, when was it, Paul? About 99?
2000.
2000, poor Norman was killed in a flying accident, of all things. And I went along, they had a memorial at Richard Branson's house, and I met young Paul here, who said, "Why don't you come up and help?" And I could not think of any reasonable excuse not to. So I came along, and I had a nervous day. Well, I think within a couple of months of me starting, 9/11 happened. And there was I telling people about not being scared of flying when they'd seen airplanes fly into buildings. And that was interesting time. And I built up a style, and Paul's seen this many times, where I like to find out what they know and what they think, and knock down those popular misconceptions about flying. Things like air pockets and wings falling off and all that sort of stuff. So I would ask them questions all the time and get them involved. I wouldn't start telling them, I wouldn't start preaching to them, I wouldn't read out of a book. I would say, "How many engines has this got? What happens if it failed? What happens if this happens? What happens if that happens?" And get them involved. And my plan was to get them laughing. And once they were laughing, they couldn't be afraid. And I must admit, when I got them laughing, I was laughing, and it was a good time. And I was doing that from I retired in 18. So I did 18 years of it, and then it all sort of folded anyway. I thoroughly enjoyed it, but I retired in 18. I've been down in Somerset building houses, in fact, for the last 4 years, and I haven't really had time to give to Paul. But I'm back on, and I have got a better internet now, which is why it's working.
Yeah, I'm impressed. Oh, thank you.
It's good to see all you guys.
Thank you very much. I mean, this is what a lovely vibe. And I want to squeeze as much as I can out. I want to keep it fairly light-hearted. So I've got a couple of questions. Obviously, the critical question I was wrestling with was, what's the collective noun for a bunch of pilots? There's no
awesome of pilots.
Yeah.
No, it's a confusion.
Well, I googled it. Apparently, there's a deck of pilots.
Oh, nice.
A flight of pilots. I thought that was a bit boring. A stack of pilots. I thought that was quite good. Yeah. A union of pilots. Yeah. Or a bar of pilots. And I thought that was. I didn't know if that was okay to say, but that's what it came up. So that's Google. Google never lies. So the next question, which is critical, obviously we all want to know this. Who is actually the best pilot on this call?
All of us.
Oh, smooth, Legge.
No, but the thing is, it was one thing to say, we had a choice. We could either be pilots or we could grow up. So we actually stayed as pilots. And every pilot thinks they're the best. Why wouldn't they?
Thanks, Maverick. Yeah.
And to understand Exupéry wrote that I learned that I couldn't be a painter, so I learned how to fly. That's what he wrote.
To me, it's humor. You can hear the humor in everyone's approach there. And I don't know about you all, but that's the greatest asset that I have when I talk to people who are afraid to fly. You know, the last thing that you want to do is end up talking about flying with them. If you're flying with them on an airplane, you want them to talk about anything but that. And for those who were able to fly before they became afraid, that they can't remember those days. All they can remember is the obsession over flying and all that. But I hear the humor, and I think most of the pilots that I've flown with that I enjoyed the most had a great sense of humor, and I'm hearing that as kind of a common theme here.
Yeah, the other ones I didn't invite to this call, to be honest.
Yeah, there you go.
They're not welcome.
In addition to the humor, I think humility, I think, is a good thing for being a pilot. I know I always enjoyed flying with pilots who had a sense of humility and humbleness about them. So, yeah, and I kind of heard that too. We all brag about it or joke about it, but we do have a lot of humility. So
you know that there were a couple of years that I did in El Al an intro lecture to young pilots that came to El Al. Actually, they were not young, because El Al used to take mostly former military pilots.
Yeah.
And I used to tell them, guys, let me just give you the highlights of what's different here. It's exactly what you have learned in the military. Everything is just opposite. Everything that you know from the military, it's just upside down. For example, flight envelope, for example. In the military, you have to fly or the highest or the lowest speed. Here you fly in the middle. And you have to be humble, as Ron said, and you have to be cooperative. And this is the opposite of being competitive.
Yeah.
You cannot be aggressive. You have to be, and most of all, you have to learn not to achieve the so-called goal of getting there and to give up, because in the military you are awarded for taking chances in order to have your mission done. Here there is no mission. So I think that, Ron, what you said about being humble and understanding, first of all, that we came to a new environment, that we don't need to know exactly how to maneuver in the vertical up, and then we don't have to do it. We have to make the passengers feel safe, feel comfortable, know how to work with our co-pilots or our captains. So, and the answer, who is the best pilot, for me, it's not really, it's not interesting. It's not interesting. We are all good pilots if we are there. That's what I feel.
Nice.
To build on that just a little bit to what you said, Alon, is that as a captain, I used to teach the human factors program at the airline that I worked for, and when I would teach a class of new hires, we'd get one day of crew resource management or human factors for them, and I'd ask them at the end of the day, or challenge them. I said, think of a time when you were flying, no matter which seat you were flying in, when the other pilot did something and you were unsure about it and you wanted to ask him, but you didn't. I said, that's the part of you that you have to look at, and I always, for fearful flyers as well as my fellow crew members, I wanted to create an atmosphere of safety for them so that they would confront me and ask those questions. And I find the same thing carries with people who are afraid to fly. If you can make them feel safe, because that's the antithesis of the way they've come to you, then they're more likely to open up, and you got to get them to tell their story so you can help them rewrite it, because their story is what gets them in trouble. So,
right.
I think the human element's really important there as well. And quite often I've said to people, just remember that I've got family at home that I want to get home to tonight. I'm not going to put myself in any danger, even if I didn't care about my passengers, which obviously I do. But even if it was only about making sure that I'm safe, I'm still sitting up the front there, and there's someone else sitting next to me who has also got people to get home to that night. And I found a lot of people can really relate to that, because they kind of think, well, and I think also I found as a woman as well, people often said, I just felt like you were flying more safely than some of the male pilots I've had. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. The aircraft works the same. But, I think, because I did put myself out there, and, I became known throughout the airline for, I was always my welcome on board PA. I always did from the front of the cabin on the flight attendant's speakerphone, because I wanted people to see a face that they could think about, just to put them at ease. And actually it meant, when you work for a no frills short haul airline, you're probably out the front of the cabin quite a lot, apologising for delays anyway. So, it just made that easier. But that was when I became a captain. That was what I decided was going to be my sort of thing, was going to be making sure my passengers knew that the person at the front who was responsible for the aircraft and everyone in it was somebody who wasn't going to put them in any danger. So, and I think it's nice to have had the opportunity to have been able to remind people of that as well. So
nice, I like that. Thank you.
30 seconds, Paul, to pick up on what Alan and Ron said. Why don't the airlines have a Top Gun school? The reason is it would create the wrong culture. So when I say we are all the best, it is we want all our airline pilots to be the best. We don't want an elitist school. I pause.
Yeah.
So would you like some random questions then? So I've carefully prepared some questions. And you
go
just
for it.
So I'll be looking to Adelle and Ralph, because give you some airtime to these other lot. All meant with respect, of course, the utmost respect. One moment, I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, so it's a randomizer. Okay. Yeah. You ready? So let's see where it ends up. Yeah, who'd like to answer that one? Celeb, you were most excited to meet.
Morgan Freeman. I had him on a flight from Heathrow to San Francisco. One of my great heroes. Absolutely delightful chap. And the other one was Danny DeVito, who was on a flight from LA to London. Nicest chap you could ever meet, and as funny in real life as he is on the screen.
Excellent. Good one.
I'll
Anybody
go
else?
James Blunt. I flew James Blunt back from Parma, and I really love. I'm sorry, but I really love him. And
no judgment. It's a safe space, Emma.
I was really scared to ask. I was first officer. I was really scared to ask his autograph because I thought it was really annoying to do that. So I got the cabin crew to do it. But my husband was in the Gulf at the time, and he was coming back the next day. So I said, "Tell them that my husband's coming back from." He was in Al Udeid, and I said he'd been going in and out of Afghanistan all the time. And I said to him, tell him he's coming back tomorrow, and could I please have his autograph? And he gave it. She got it on a permit to remove steps sheet, and so he wrote me this message, and I kept it in my flight bag for the rest of my entire career. And then the other guy was Professor Green, who's a DJ, and none of us had really heard of him. And so the captain, when they said, "Oh, Professor Green's on board," he said, "Oh, go and ask him what he's got. What he's a professor of." And I have one.
Pluto, isn't it?
I have one other, which is the guy that was married to Zoe Ball, Norman. He's in that band.
Fatboy Slim.
Norman. Thank you, Fatboy Slim. So he sat at the front of the aircraft with his travelling partner, and I came out and did my welcome on board PA. And as I went back into the flight deck, his travelling partner turned to him and went, "That's Captain Emma from the TV." And I sort of just laughed. And when I went back inside, the cabin crew said to me, "Do you know who that was?" I was like, "No." And I was like, "That's ridiculous that Fatboy Slim's travelling partner would say, 'That's Captain Emma.'" And I should have been going, "Oh my God, that's Fatboy Slim."
And Ralph knows that, because Ralph spends most of his summers at Glastonbury. So Billy Connolly's yours, is it, Ralph?
Billy Connolly is. I've just read his book. I flew him out to LA, and he is the most funniest chap on this earth. I mean, he's getting a bit old now, but and I'm just reading the book. He'll do a 3-hour show, and none of it will be rehearsed. None of it is planned. He stands up, and he talks what he thinks about. And we spent 8 hours going out to LA, and all the time he could stand, he was in one of the galleys just talking to the girls and making them laugh, and just
Wow.
talking about what was going on. But the funniest thing was I had to see this guy. So as soon as we landed, I jumped out the flight deck. Upper class had all cleared. This was before we had bed seats and things. And he was walking up from the bar to the forward wardrobe because he had his mandolin, massive, great big mandolin and leather case in there. Not mandolin, banjo. And he walked, and to see him walk, it was like something from Monty Python. It was so funny because he's big, gangly and uncoordinated. and he looks at you and you laugh. It's a bit like, oh, who was that other guy?
Tommy Cooper.
Tommy Cooper. Just, you look at him and you laugh. And I thought, I love you. He's just got this book out, which I've read, which is brilliant. And the other one was Hugh Laurie. He came in when we could sit in the flight deck. He landed into Johannesburg with us. And he was a delightful character. And he just written a book as well. And two of the pilots on the flight deck had read it, which was a coincidence. And right at the end, he said, "Oh, did you both buy my book, or did one of you lend it to the other?" I said, "I'll tell you that, Hugh." And he said, "You bloody cheapskates." And yeah, funny character as well, but there's my thing.
Brilliant. Let's do another question. All right, let's see what we've got. Oh, this could be a serious one. Most challenging situation you've had to deal with. Well, that's a bit of a party pooper one, isn't it? Oh,
Do we have an aviation one?
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, go on then, Adelle.
It's a bit out there. So we had a flight down to, I think it was Shanghai, and there was some unfavourable weather conditions at destination, let's say. So we're very aware of it. We had enough fuel on. We always put in those layers of safety, Paul. We talk about it over and over again. We actually put enough fuel on to get to our destination, turn around and go all the way back to Beijing. So a lot of extra fuel. So we get down to our destination, which is Shanghai. Indeed, the weather is not favourable to land. So we make a missed approach, which I'm sure we talk about a lot on this programme. So we did the go around and the missed approach procedure, which is the bit that brings you safely away from the ground, and we went to our alternate airfield and we landed in there. And lo and behold, we were in a country which is a little bit challenging at times in terms of if you've got humans that perhaps haven't got the right passport to be in a certain part of China, it can be a bit challenging. So indeed, we had some people on board who didn't have the right visas, because we had been going into Shanghai and we were now in a different part of China. So it took us an awful long time to get our passengers off and through and be accepted into the country and get them safely on their way to a hotel to rest whilst we got the aircraft prepared again, waited for the unfavourable weather conditions. I'm trying to be as polite about it as possible. It was a typhoon had passed, and on their way back to Shanghai they go. However, the time spent to process all of our lovely passengers and get them safely off the aircraft and into the terminal building, the typhoon had indeed now come to the airport that we were at. So what in fact happened, and this is the challenging situation, was once we disembarked the aircraft and we were on our way to a hotel, because we'd been on duty for I think 18 and a half hours at this stage, so we really needed some sleep. We're on the way to the hotel, and in between walking between the terminal building and the bus, a piece of terminal building flew off and hit the captain across the head and created a big gash in his head. And that is another story. But that was a challenging few days. A lot of things happened over those few days, which were all big learning points. But the outcome, it was obviously we got all of our lovely passengers to where they wanted to be, but a day late. But it just puts in that layer of, okay, if it's not safe to do something, it's not safe to land in a typhoon. It isn't. Yeah. We don't do it, and we do something which is an alternative, and that's always something that we've got in reserve. We've also always got a backup plan. So no matter what the challenge is, there's a backup.
Good story. And the pilot was
Doesn't
okay?
that-
The pilot with half a head, was he all right?
Yeah, he recovered. But
Doesn't that also prove it is more dangerous to walk across an apron than
Yes,
it
in a
is to go
typhoon.
flying?
It's also quite damp to walk across an apron. in a typhoon.
I should think quite damp is a bit like saying the Pope's a little bit Catholic, isn't it?
I have a challenging situation to share. I'm telling to my people that I'm teaching that throughout 18 years of flying, the most, so-called challenging situation was maybe the only time that we declared an emergency. It was because of smoke from the galley, which we landed and nothing really happened. But really the most challenging situation that I had was taking off out of LA, from New York with the 747-400 and discovering that all the lavatories are not operative. Now,
Grim.
you have a 9 hours and 40 minutes flight with 419 people on board. All the lavatories are not flushing, okay? That's the thing. Now, that's really
It's grim.
a problem. And we decided that we are going to take it one step at a time. We'll start the flight and try to maintain as much as the time that we could. Then we landed with everybody running very fast. This embarkation was very, very fast at this time.
Probably looked like an emergency evacuation when you got there.
Like what you did there, Ron. Very good.
On another one.
Go on then. Yes.
So Tim Hills, who you probably remember, and myself, me as a young first officer, we were flying Orlando back to Manchester, and because of a medical emergency, this predates Medlink, we diverted into Bangor, and we went out of hours, so we couldn't go on. So, okay, we're night stopping in Bangor. There's very little ground handling equipment there. So we ended up doing all that, and then sent the passenger off to hospital to get sorted out. We offloaded the aircraft bags. As they're driving away, the first pallet fell over, so we had to put it all back on there. We get to the hotels with our customers, get them all sorted out. Night stop, fantastic, get sorted out. Back in the morning, little foggy, but yeah, it's okay to arrive. Getting all the passengers on board, and then ops call us, hold on, there's another passenger joining. The passenger that we diverted into Bangor for is now coming up the steps to get back on the aircraft. The reaction from the customers was not good.
Yeah, because they probably wanted him to be at least dead.
Yes.
You know,
Well, certainly not
for
on
the
their
inconvenience. Yeah. Wow. Okay, let's do another question. I understand that some of you have to go. If you do need to drop off, then we will just talk about you when you're gone, if that's all right.
Yeah.
That's why I'm staying.
Best aircraft type to fly.
Easy, Airbus all the time, every single day, and all the Boeing pilots will go, "Oh no, the thrust levers don't move. I can't possibly deal with an Airbus. The thrust levers don't move, so I don't know where the thrust, what the thrust is doing." Really?
I totally agree.
Sorry, Airbus.
I totally agree. And they say, and you've only got one side stick. How do you manage with that? I said, well, when you're flying your Boeing, you have one hand on the yoke and one hand on the throttles. You only need one.
You have one hand on the throttles because they move all the time. How annoying. Also, where do Boeing pilots eat? I mean, how do you eat without a tray table that pulls out?
You're right.
What's that all about?
But Airbus is not an airplane. It's just a flying machine that flies the plane.
No, an Airbus
When
is
you
so
are
much more than. No, an Airbus is so much more than that.
If it says Airbus on the side, it better say Martin Baker on the seats.
Yeah.
If it's
That leads me to my answer. It's an F-16. I'm sorry. That's the best plane I flew.
No, Tom.
340-600. That's the one.
Oh dear.
Ralph's even got one with him, because as you do, you know.
Oh dear. I actually feel a little bit sad about all of that.
It's a bit boys with their toys. Everyone's producing toy aircraft in the background now.
So I have this debate with my husband all the time, because my husband is still in the Air Force and he is running the training program for the new P-8 Poseidon maritime patrol aircraft that we've got. And obviously that's based on, it's a Boeing 737 with loads of cool kit on it. And so we, obviously during lockdown, we were both, I'm sitting now on my landing, which has got my desk at one end and his desk at the other end. So I'd be hearing his meetings and things. And we had this permanent debate through lockdown about whether Boeing is better than Airbus. And obviously I'm right. So
obviously, yeah.
That's why we're still married.
I've flown both types, and you know, and it's difficult to choose, isn't it? It is difficult to choose. But I have to say,
not for Emma.
I know Emma's quite sure of her decision. I'm not. I think the most fun aeroplane that I ever flew, and I'm talking about commercial air transport aircraft here, was the 737. And for the reason that it's like a giant tractor, and that's how I feel about the 737. It's so easy to fly in comparison to some other types I've flown, which is why I laugh when Ralph got the 340-600 out there, because the thing that the 340-600 reminds me of is departures out of Johannesburg. And that's all I'm saying. I watch Pete and Ralph smile, because they know what I mean.
You just worried a bunch of listeners now.
My whole career was just flying, you know, domestic and then Canada and Mexico, and so I flew the 737 27 out of the 30 years. So you know, it's like, you know, you can do it with blindfolded after a while. But I remember one day when we started getting A320s, and so it was new to the ground crew, and we controlled in Phoenix here, we controlled our own pushbacks and all that, and then you'd contact ground control when you got out on the taxiway. So this one morning, the tug crew, they had just repainted the ground lines for the new Airbuses, and we had 4 concourses and with connecting traffic ways for the passengers. And so this ground crew, the guy on the tug on the bottom, he called up the tower and he says, hey, you know, he says, I'm looking at that line. He said, I don't think this Airbus is going to fit if I push it back on those lines. And they said, well, if the line is painted that way, then obviously somebody's taking care of it. So sure enough, he pushes it back, pushes the tail of an A320 into the terminal. And that was the end of it. And so that, of course, there was a lot of anecdotal humor about that, and we had kind of a war between the Boeing pilots and the Airbus pilots, you know, as pilots will do. And one of our assistant chief pilots said if they'd have it did $7 million worth of damage to the tail empennage on the A320. And one of the Boeing pilots said if it had been a Boeing, they'd have had to replace the terminal.
Good.
Yeah. If it says it'll fit, it'll fit. Okay.
I love that. That is great. How are we doing for time, folks? We've been going about 15 minutes. I know some people might need to go. I'm loving this personally, but obviously you might have lives.
I have to fly.
I'll stay until I'll stay until the family start to leave, and then the 14 of us getting them out of the house this week. I think the record time we've made has been an hour and a half. So you
want to make sure
they
all
we're
leave.
Good at the moment. Yeah, exactly. Go.
So, all right, so let's do a sort of like rather than go to the quiz, although I like the random questions, what about this, in case some of you have to leave, why don't we do your one top tip or the best thing that you would say for nervous flyers, you know, your consolidated wisdom, the mother lode. I don't know why I call it that.
I don't think there's a short answer to that. Other people might have a short answer, but I had a electrician doing some work on our house recently, and just by the by happened to mention he was going on holiday, and actually he was really worried because he'd had a fear of flying for the most of his life, and one of these people that go to the bar as soon as they get into the airport, no matter what time of the morning, because they feel that they need something before they get on the flight, just to dispel those nerves. And I said, look, let's just spend 5 minutes together, and I'm just going to show you a really simple thing. And all of my party tricks in the fear of flying environment, but I did the £10 note trick, Paul. So it's just a very simple way of explaining how an airplane flies. And it's just about creating lift over the top of a £10 note, and lo and behold, as you blow over the top of the £10 note, it creates lift, and the £10 note floats upwards. So I just showed him that, and he went on the flight, and he sent me a message from his destination. He said, best flight of my life, because I wasn't worried about how the airplane flew. I knew how it flew. I knew how lift worked. So I think it's giving people the information, the correct information. So one piece of advice: dispel the myth, listen to the truth. So not the man down the pub syndrome that we used to talk about. Actually listen to people like us, because we are all here, and we will all give you that knowledge. Fantastic, Adelle. Pete does that one as well, but he only uses £50 notes. He won't go near a £10 note. I'm just not of the same calibre as Pete. I do admit that. No, that's a lovely tip. Thank you for that. Where are we going to next? £10 note. Let me go to Emma in case Emma has to clear off. Do you mind if we go to your?
I would say we spend a lot of years learning how to fly and learning how to do our jobs, and we spend a lot of time in the simulator making sure that we are up to speed with any new procedures, or we go through all our safety procedures and everything. We are the professionals you are paying to fly you to your destination. So allow us to do our jobs, and don't worry about whether or not we can do them properly, because I don't expect to go to an accountant and tell them how to do my accounts. In the same way as you don't need to worry about whether or not the aircraft is going to be safe or not. That is our job. And if there's any doubt at all about whether we're doing the right thing, we won't do it. So that would be my sort of best tip, would be just let the people at the front of the aircraft do the job they are trained and paid to do, and then sit back and enjoy your flight. Brilliant. Love that. Thanks, Emma. Where are we going next?
Can I build on that, Paul?
Yeah.
Because Emma's absolutely right. Because one of the things when we taught the courses, I used to say to people, right, okay, who drove here in their car this morning? And people put their hand up. I said, right, so you've been on the skid pan, so you get checked out on spinning your car when you're driving on ice and wet roads. Oh, when you get tested every 6 months, your driving license, it doesn't last forever. And if you're driving with somebody else, just say, well, can I just check your license? Is it in date? And what have you done recently? And as Emma says, that's what pilots go through. We get checked every 6 months. We practice all the emergencies and some that aren't in the book. So trust your pilots, and don't forget the cabin crew, because they're equally trained as well as us.
Absolutely.
And the thing I would say to people is, and I've seen it on posts people have done, you're not on your own. Make sure that your cabin crew and your pilots are aware that you're not comfortable with flying. Okay, because they can do things to help you, support you. And I think all my pilot colleagues, if we've got time, we'll invite you up the flight deck, or when I'm on break, I'll come down and talk to you, and I'll show you the weather map and stuff like that. Nice. No, Emma's spot on. Thank you very much. Cheers, Pete.
Can I just add to that car analogy as well, which is, it's not just your driver's license. It's, did you check your lights before you went? Did you keep the, have you had a full MOT every day before you drive your car? Have you, do you do a walk around, all of that sort of thing? So that's another part of it. It's not the people and the aircraft. Yeah. It's such a highly regulated industry that, and because people flying EasyJet would often say, oh, low cost, does that mean it's not as safe? And you're like, no, it's not low cost, it's no frills. So, because actually you pay a lot of money for an EasyJet flight these days anyway. But it's such a highly regulated industry. We are all subjected to the same, or all subject to the same safety requirements as each other. So, it's good to be able to relate it back to something that they can actually, that passengers can actually understand, isn't it?
Brilliant. Thank you.
I would say,
where are we going next?
I've found over the 35 years that I've been doing this that there's really been a shift where, getting started, it was mostly talking about the technical aspects of aviation that bother people, crashing, dying, things like that. But now it's like anxiety disorders are a growth industry in the world, and most people, they'll own the fact that that they don't like to fly, but they'll say, I know that the airplane's safe, I know all that, but what I don't get is what bothers me is claustrophobia, anticipatory anxiety, and things like that. So those are the things that I find most, and I try to listen to them, and I was listening to Emma. We used to joke, we're the first ones to the scene of the accident, so we're really emotionally invested in the outcome of this thing, and all that. And they the fun part for me as a pilot, is talking about the technical stuff, because that's my stuff, that's our stuff, right? We do that, with our hands tied behind us and blindfolded. But the challenge for me has been dealing with the claustrophobia, the anticipatory anxiety, people that just go frickin' nuts, just at the thought. They can't even they don't even have to get to the airplane. It starts with them when they think about buying a ticket and all that. And so I would go along. I recommend, the number one thing I recommend them do is board early. We have an American with Disabilities Act, so you can identify yourself as having a medical condition in a domestic U.S. carrier, and then you tell them that you want to you either a special seat, depending on whether the airline pre-books the seats, or I need extra time, and that puts them ahead of everybody with the wheelchairs. And then I say, use that time by telling the flight attendant that you have a fear of flying, you're nervous about flying, and then asked to meet the pilots. I said that is the number one thing, and most people report that gave them the most, because it's the most present and the closest to their departure that they can get confidence, and they just need confidence that they're going to be okay. And it doesn't even really matter what the crew tells them for the most part, as long as they identify that. But they need to own the fact that they're afraid. And when they come to me and they say, "Oh, Captain Ron, you're more wonderful and I'm flying all this," I said, "Don't blame your success on me." But I do want them to know that it's what goes on up here, that it's the story you tell yourself that makes your flight, not what happens on the airplane. And I tell them, do not worry, because we are not going to share our paychecks with you. We appreciate all the worrying you do. It keeps the airplane in the loft. But we're not going to share our pay with you. That's on you. So,
thanks, Ron.
And I just say, I want to stay here forever, because
I want that
I'm
as well.
having such a great morning. But I've got to go and make sure this lot leave. So thank you so much for today. Can we do this again? I've really enjoyed it, and
thank you, Emma.
I'm sure we'll speak again on the chat. But thanks ever so much for a great
nice
morning.
To meet you, Emma. Have a
nice
great
to meet you too.
Thanks a lot.
Take care. See you. Bye.
So if I can push you, I want Ralph's and Alon's tip as well.
Well, I actually totally agree with the communication bit. If you communicate and tell someone that you're not really happy about the flight, most particularly one of the cabin crew, then certainly the cabin crew that I know will make sure and come down and say, "Okay, well then," and just to share that fear, not share the fear, but share the knowledge of it, will help you. And going back to the one about the cars, the driving, it's one of the sequence of questions I used to do on the course, and say that, because so what don't you like about flying? And it would be lack of control. I'm not in control. So I'll say, well, how many of you came here today in a car? And most of them will put their hands up. And he said, how many were in the passenger seat? Of course, half of them were in the passenger seat. Well, were you in control? No, I wasn't. Okay. For all those who are drivers, how many of you have had an accident? And most of them put their hands up and say, well, how many of you was it your fault? And not many. Most of the hands come down and say, so you had an accident in your car and it wasn't your fault, but you were in control. And I said, oh, well, no, perhaps I wouldn't. Well, think of it. You've got two pilots up there. There's no roundabouts. There's no one-way streets. It's all open air. And we've got so many protection systems around us that the likelihood of having an accident is so absolutely minuscule that you don't even have to think about it. And you can see people's minds open up and going, oh yeah, I hadn't thought about that. And I love getting that from us. Right, let's dispel another one then. You know?
Yeah, I love that.
What if you walk into an air pocket? What happens? Can you breathe? So,
No.
I don't know. So, well, what is an air pocket? I don't know. No, because there's no such thing as an air pocket. You get turbulence, but there's no such thing as an air pocket. Yeah, there you go.
Thank you, Ralph. That's great. I can see, so on my screen, so Adelle and Pete, you've both gone. You were both in the dark for a minute, like a crime watch program. So I can see, so Alon, let's go to you.
Yeah, I would like, I like very much what Ron says, because I think roughly, you can look at two types of being scared of flying. One is a specific scare of flying, in which if you give them information, it will calm them down. But then there is a question. You can ask them, okay, so you can drive to your destination, but I will send your family on a flight. Would you take it? And if they say no, they're afraid of the fear and not afraid of flying. And these are the really difficult people to handle. And my best tip for them is, first of all, to tell them, guys, you are okay. Afraid is okay. And we are going not to eliminate the fear. We're not going to cure you from fear because you are okay. We're just trying to give you better environment in every way that we can do. So, for example, what Ron just said, tell the crew, well, that's a gold advice, I would say, and the crew should help them. Tell it to everybody in order for you not to blame yourself of being afraid. So I would say that the technical people, the people that are afraid of something very technical, it's very easy. Find out what they're afraid of and calm them down. That we are great. But if they're afraid of the fear of not being in control of closed spaces, etc., set the target to not to eliminate the fear, just to reduce it by any way that you can do. And first step is to accept it and say, okay, I'm okay. That's what I would say.
Like that. So sort of like a self-compassion thing there, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to teach recurrent human factors to all the pilots every year. So it started at the same time that I started serendipitously be involved in teaching people how to overcome their fear of flying. And one of the things that I became familiar with very early on is that, we come on and we tell people, hey, I've asked the flight attendants to take their seats because we had some reports of turbulence up ahead. People in the back, if that's all you say, they completely freak out. They think this is going to be the big one, they're going to have a heart attack or and so what I would tell the crews, I said, when you guys make announcements and gals, it's great that you give them an alert like that, but make sure you follow it up with some reassuring words to close it. Like, hey, we're just putting the flight attendants in the seats because we want them to be securely fastened like you are, so that they don't get hurt as well. And I found, I told them, about the 6th grade level, because if you do it any more technical, that confuses them and they get frightened. If you do it too simple, they feel talked down to and then they get offended. So, somewhere in the middle, but always close your remarks with some kind of reassuring comments. Yeah.
Ron, you've reminded me of Pete's story.
You want me to tell it? Yeah.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, we did. Ron, I was smiling because remember I was a line trainer with Virgin, and there's a brand new captain, left-hand seat, flying along, and as you suggested, we just hit a little bit of turbulence, started burning, and then it just got a little worse, and the captain just grabbed the PA and say, "Cabin crew, take your seats, full harness." I looked at the FO and I looked at him and I, yeah, okay, right idea. Wrong method. You scared the bejeebers us out of 400 passengers down the back here because they're all looking around. I haven't got a full harness.
Yeah, I always say you have to be really careful with your words.
One person who wasn't afraid, you got them now.
You got it.
Full success.
But it matters, doesn't it? Because one of the things that I've always felt very passionate about is communication. Particularly, you got this position. Now, whether you're a nervous flyer or not, a lot of people hang on what the pilots are saying and the crew as well, of course. And it's very easy to even just the words "we're going to hit turbulence" gives the impression is there's a visual. Then it's a wall. I'm going to hit something. So just really, I'm really mindful of these sort of words that sometimes people just unhelpfully trot out. Not this crowd, obviously, but
no. But as Ron says, it's part of pilot training now. We are educating them to this, how important it is.
Yeah.
So Ron, you've managed to, it's like about 2 a.m. for you, is it something like that?
It is. Yeah, I'm going to hang it up here in just a minute. But I've really enjoyed this, Paul. It's been wonderful meeting all of you out there, and I hear the same kind of theme. You guys got hooked like I did, and it's just it's just awesome. And in the psychological community, it's quick therapy, relatively speaking. Not everybody is going to get cured, but for the most part, you give them a little bit of information and they can go a long ways with it, and reassure them, tell them, it's okay to be afraid, we'll take care of the technical stuff and all that. And so I hear a lot of what I identify with a lot of what you all have said about your attitudes towards people, and you guys are probably pretty good captains to fly with too, I must say. So yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Nicely put, Ron. Thanks, everyone. I really appreciate giving up your time today. It's been amazing. I've really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah. And, thanks a lot. And I hope you do this again. And I would love to participate. So anyway, well, I'll take that as an invitation to leave the group for the rest of the day. And again, thanks to all of you, and keep doing the good work. And thanks for inviting me, Paul.
Cheers,
appreciate
Ron.
it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a great day. Okay,
cheers.
Bye-bye.
And you. Thanks a lot.
Cheers, Ron.
Well, folks, thank you very much. And probably this is a good time to clear off and give you back your lives. But I'm really grateful for you giving it. And Ralph, I didn't think you'd make it, because I know your Wi-Fi's been crap down in Somerset. So
I didn't declare anything. I just thought I'll give it my best shot. And I had to reload everything. I thought, I'll just come in. And it said, no, you've got to update this, you've got to update that. I'm never going to get on. But I did.
You did. You're here. Yeah, a real person. And Alon's going to probably recruit you as well now, because for his Simplify app, where he has, I think you've spoken to Pete already. Yeah. Adelle, I would avoid eye contact because he'll be recruiting you. But no, thanks.
I don't think I've got any more time in my life at the moment, Paul. I'm pretty busy.
Yeah, no, brilliant. Thank you so much, everyone. I shall call it here. Brilliant. Really appreciate it, and
well done,
hopefully we'll get to do this again, because it's fun for me.
I think we should. I really do think we should. I think it's nice to kind of get together with fellow professionals and talk aviation. Fearofflying. It's great.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.
Cheers. Thanks a lot.
Cheers, Paul.
Thank you.
Right, back to defending the nation.
Keep going, Pete.
We appreciate it. Thank you.